Hello, everybody. My name's Milan Starcic. Welcome to Freedom Rising, a podcast dedicated to empowering individuals on the journey to personal growth, lasting serenity, and freedom from addiction. Tune in and join the movement. Your journey to freedom starts here. We neither represent, promote, or demote any 12-step program or organization. We are merely souls on the path of recovery with the desire to expand our lives and experiences and share them with you. Hello, everybody.
Hey, guys.
Welcome to the 63rd Recovery Freedom Rising podcast. I'm Milan Starcic with co-hosts Andrew Norman and Chris. Would you tell us a little bit about your Chris, seeing how it's your first time here on the show?
Hey, thank you so much for having me this afternoon. I've really been looking forward to this. So yeah, I guess I will jump right in with a little bit about my background. I first got drunk at the age of 9. I was in the 4th grade. It was at one of my parents' holiday parties, and you know, they kind of thought it was funny. It was the 90s. I was born in 85, and yeah, it just kind of happened. And uh I didn't particularly love the after effects because I got very sick, but I did like being the adult in the room. I liked being I liked the feeling like an adult. I'm the youngest of 4, and so right around 7th grade, I started drinking quasi-regularly with some of my older siblings. But that was, you know, I'd say maybe once a month or once every few months. And then, you know, like progressively right around junior year of high school, which in Canada would be grade 11, or maybe even 12. I can't remember how they do it up there. It became more regular. I, you know, was the person that they would sell beer to. I grew up in a very small town, and for whatever reason, I became the guy that could get alcohol and drugs, honestly. And I was a pretty nerdy kid that didn't fit in well. I was geeky. I was pushed very hard to excel academically by my family, almost to a point of perfection. And I wasn't accepted in most social circles. But when I was able to get alcohol and throw parties and take the alcohol out into the fields or out into the camp, that's where we used to use and drink was campsites and stuff like that. You know, that ease and comfort that comes with the first drink was amazing. I had arrived. People thought I was funny. I let my guard down. I was accepted. You know, I became part of the in crowd, and I really liked that. I liked feeling part of the group. You know, and from there, my drinking kind of just became the most important thing in my life. You know, I did go to college, university, over in Boston, or Waltham particularly, and graduated in 4 years. But I don't think I drew a sober breath the entire 4 years. Either, you know, marijuana, alcohol, other things. You know, most days we were using something from the very first day. And my relationships with all people were based in substances. That being said, you know, looking back, it's easy to see that you know, like that I qualified as alcoholic then. You know, I couldn't stop once I started until I blacked out. I blacked out almost every time, or until the point that I was passing out. And then I would also, you know, like it's a disease of mind and body, and turns out spirit. But you know, like my brain would then convince me that if I just did it a little bit differently the next day, that it would be okay, that I could manage this disease that we have. So, like those two components that I now understand to be the physical allergy and the phenomena of craving, um, had already been apparent at, 22. But I went on for another 15 years. I'll be 40 this year. I got sober on November 28th, 2022. And through those ensuing 15 years, some were better, some were worse. I went to my first AA meeting in 2009, and I did not get sober until 2022. There were intervening years that I did not attend any AA meetings. I I got away with a lot of my drinking. I worked in New York and Manhattan at an advertising agency, where the culture was work hard, party harder. And everybody had a bottle at their desk, and it was 5 o'clock or 4 o'clock, and it was acceptable to drink, to the point of being pretty drunk. And as long as the work was getting done, like they didn't care. They honestly encouraged it. They would feed the habit. Right around 2018, I started not being able to perform as well. It's a progressive disease, and I needed more and more alcohol and more drugs to achieve the same effect, which had more and more dire consequences. Um, then COVID hit, and we all went home. And then suddenly, my one bottle of wine turned into two, which turned into three, which turned into four. And at some point, I crashed a car. I got a DUI. I flipped it. I didn't hurt anybody and didn't hurt myself, by the grace of God, honestly. And that started a series of inpatient rehabs, which I then went to for the better part of 2 years. I thought that self-knowledge would solve my problem of alcoholism and drug addiction. I thought that if I could work through all of my trauma from my ex-husband, from my parents, from, societal homophobia, from all of the things that were, real or imagined. If I could just work through those traumas, that I could drink like a normal person. And I had to prove that that wasn't the case. I'm incredibly grateful for all of the trauma therapy and all of the outside help that I had in getting to a place that perhaps I could then accept recovery. Perhaps I needed to do that to get to a point where I could fully surrender, and admit that I was powerless over this disease and that my life had become completely unmanageable. I'm pretty stubborn. I had to prove that to myself through experimentation. So I had many bottoms. My final bottom, was not having a job, not being able to pay my rent, being threatened of losing my house, having $3 in my bank account, not being able to turn up from work, having grand mal seizures, ending up in the hospital for 3 days on the cardiac unit because my heart was not doing well, having stage 3 fatty liver disease. And the sad thing is I walked out of that hospital and I picked up on my way home. I that's the insanity of the disease, like that is just the insanity with respect to alcohol. Um, but on November 28th, I checked myself into my final state-run rehab. And uh, and I asked for help. I asked, and my sponsor asked me like, are you done? And I finally said, yeah. And he said, well, what do you want to do? And I said, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. I'll do whatever you want. My first encounter with my higher power, which I call God, was the gift of desperation, God. And I was willing to do anything. And so from that point on, I started taking instructions, and I started reading the book of Alcoholics Anonymous. And it set me up for a series of spiritual experiences, which has given me the freedom and the relief that I never thought imaginable. Today I work in peer recovery services down in Portland. Here we call them peer support specialists. I actively work with 25 different people. We're the first queer recovery organization in Oregon. And we opened this center in October of 22. And we now have 30 meetings a week here. Between the 9 of us, we serve hundreds of people. We have 800 people coming through our center on any given week. So it was a little bit of, if you build it, they will come. We don't only do 12-step. We do, recovery Dharma, we do AA, we do NA, we do CMA, we do dual diagnosis, we do Al-Anon, we do it all because there's so many different ways to recover. I finally got it in AA. I love the program of Alcoholics Anonymous. It has given, like I said, it has given me a freedom and a relief from the obsession that one day I can drink or use like a gentleman. I have been restored to sanity with respect to alcohol. I say that and I can't believe it, but it is true. Anyway, that's what I got. That was probably too long, but there you go.
You know what? That was awesome. It was well put, and I think it was a great
Loved it.
explanation of who you are, where you came from, and where you're at.
And thank
Uh,
you for your service.
Absolutely. And so I think we heard it, but I just want you to clarify. What would you say was the pivotal moment when the program sparked a recovery fire in your heart,
Um,
where it went from I got to do this to I love to do this?
I mean, there was a point after I got out of that rehab, after 108 or 110 days, I can't remember how long it was, and I was reestablishing my life, and I went to visit a family member who was very ill down where I grew up in California. And I was confronted with one of my greatest core fears, that I was unlovable, that I could not that I was a failure. Somebody in my family uh, said something that crushed my soul, and I walked around the streets of Los Angeles, essentially, uh, broken and without not inconsolable. Um, and at about 7 in the morning, I was still sober, and I went to a meeting that was full of people on Skid Row, and I heard a message there, and then as I was wandering back to the hotel, um, I found myself alone on a big boulevard with the sun shining, and I asked uh, God for help, and I received it. I received uh, a message of unconditional love that has not left me since. I, in a very solo manner, which is not recommended in the book, but I did a third step at that moment. I turned my will and my life over to the care of a God of my understanding. And I asked that God to relieve me of the bondage of self so that he could demonstrate through me what he can do. I asked him to take away my difficulties, and that victory over them would bear witness to those I would help of thy power, thy love, and thy way of life. And at once I was filled with a power and a love that I have never experienced. And it felt like a waterfall, an overflowing waterfall of energy, that at that moment I knew that I couldn't contain it, and that others must, uh, that I must, that all I wanted to do was give it away. And from that moment, I learned, I experienced that through helping others is the only way that I can keep it. And so it transformed me in a way that I cannot explain in words. I use words like bliss and ecstasy and beauty, and I it was an incredible experience, and the fact that I know what day it happened is, I hear, very, very rare. Um, and it's the I just for many months I did not believe that I deserved deserve to know that relief. But that is when it certainly gave me the strength to do 4 through 9, which brought me lasting freedom, and then 10 through 12, which is my daily maintenance. So yeah, that's it.
Awesome, man. That was really touching moment you shared with us, and yeah, I just love service, and yeah, it's a big part of my heart and where my life is at right now. Okay, so Andrew, today's topic is S.T.E.P.S. Steps, solution to every problem solved. Can you tell us what this means to you, Andrew, and why you were happy to come here and discuss this with us today?
Where'd you get that topic from, Milan?
Well, I know this guy in Virginia Beach who's sweet as a peach.
So look, guys, Chris, welcome. Thank you for coming on and giving us your time and being vulnerable with us and being honest and vulnerable, because what it does is it allows our hearts to connect, and it's a really special thing. It's how we get better in this world as addicts and alcoholics. Steps, man, the steps, solutions to every problem solved. And then if you're not working the steps, guys, you're nuts, right? You're not using the steps. You're nuts. Why are you going to be in a 12-step program and not work the steps, the 12 steps of that program, right? And I see it a lot. I see a lot of people that come into these rooms and don't work the steps, and don't read the literature as well, which is strange to me. It's wild to me that we come into a program and we think that this shit is just going to wear off on us, and it doesn't. I say this a lot, Chris. This is the most dangerous spectator sport in the world. We're not going to sit back in the shadows of these meetings and expect like what Chris is talking about to wear off on me, and like I'm going to go home and not drink or do drugs. It doesn't work like that. It doesn't work like that. And so the steps. Oh man, we could go on for days about this, but the steps are the keys to freedom, right? And freedom arrives at my doorstep in the form of choices every single morning. Like I have a choice. If I don't use drugs, if I don't use today, like I have a choice. I didn't have a choice in active addiction. I had no choices. My disease was doing all of the decision making for me. And I just want to hit on a couple of things you hit on, Chris, just to relate to you. Feeling a part of, man. I came into these rooms and I felt a part of for the first time ever in my life, when I never felt a part of anything. I know a lot of addicts come into these rooms and it's the first time they've ever gotten hope in their life. It's the first time they've ever felt appreciated. It's the first time they've ever been told I love you for no other reason than you went through the same near-death catastrophe I did. Like, I love you, man, and I appreciate you. And hope and love are the only two spiritual principles that we can actually give to each other in these fellowships. Like, I can't give you honesty. I can't give you all that other shit, man. We got 100 spiritual principles. I can't give you any of those other ones, but I can give you brotherly love, man. And I can give you hope. And that's what I do, right? Like I was given those things freely in this program. And so I know, like, and you touched on that too, like if I want to keep that stuff, I gotta give it away. My literature tells me I gotta give it away. And the more and more I give it away, the more and more I receive it. It's a beautiful, beautiful cycle of healthy living, and just a way that it's a whole different way of life, because we were living the opposite of that in our addiction. You said work hard, party harder. My father was always like work hard, play hard. He was like a roofer for 25 years and just drinking drugs, was doing hard drugs in front of me when I was 12 years old. It was just one of those things. And yes, this is a progressive disease. But I'm also, when I read my literature that was written for me by me, right? It tells me that my recovery can also be progressive, right? And it has to be in my case. There was a lot more that went into just the simple using of drugs when I was in active addiction. Like I did a lot of work. Like I didn't wake up with a closet full of the exact amount of drugs that I needed allotted for that day. you know, and then the next day I go to sleep and then it's just there that next day. We did a lot of work. Get breaking the law, getting people's numbers, dealing with dope dealers. Now we're sitting in a room full of hope dealers and we want to complain about picking up the phone or doing some step work. If we were in active addiction, I would have everybody's number. I'd be chasing y'all down. Look, I wouldn't even need a phone. I'd have all y'all's numbers chasing y'all down. I don't even need a phone. But we want to act like, because when we have like we all have work phones and other phones, and we want to complain about picking up a phone to keep ourselves alive today. Like, what the hell's wrong with me? You know, it's crazy. It's crazy. So then with the literature part, if you don't read your literature, you won't know that, like, we come in here with this insurmountable weight on our backs, man. All these resentments, that backpack full of those boulders that we're carrying around. And it's almost like harder to unload that backpack once we get it filled. But we walk around here and we've lost our way, right? We've lost our way. But I know that, like, I'm not responsible for the stuff I did in my disease, right? If you come in here and you don't read like that one simple line, you're gonna, like, that was such an insurmountable thing to me when I came in here, that I had done so much wrong. I was doing wrong. Everything I was doing was wrong for so long that how am I gonna clear this head up of mine that I have no, you know, I don't know my ass from my face. But then B, how am I gonna make up for all the shit I've done for 20 plus years, right? It just seems insurmountable. But when you read that one line that says you are not, start living today, you're not responsible for anything in your disease. That's that is like, I can breathe, right? I can go, okay, that makes sense to me, right? I can let all that stuff go. And then I can move forward with this recovery thing. But then it also tells me that I am now responsible for my recovery, Chris, right? I am responsible for the recovery part of it. And so now that I'm getting healthy, I know I can work harder at the recovery game than I did in my disease. Even though I was a savage in my active addiction. I know, because I know what the hell's going on now, right? I know what side of the bed I'm waking up on every day, right? I'm not having to get my mind right with a substance or substances before I even get started in the morning. You know, it's a whole different way to live. And I know we want to keep I want to keep the shares under a few minutes. So I'm gonna pass it to you, because I'll get off on a tangent just like you did. We'll go all day on this shit, because look, and you talked about Grandma Caesars. That's what got me in these rooms too. I was driving over the Hampton Roads Bridge Tunnel, and I was so stubborn. I felt my body shutting down. Like, I'd be laying in bed, like, for a year or two leading up to when I had to stop. I would be in bed, and I would feel these waves of like I was gonna die. It was like my body was shutting down. It was like my little warning signs. And then I remember crawling on the ground, not being able to breathe, like gasping for air. And I just let it go. And then I'm at work driving over the Hampton Roads Bridge Tunnel, which people go over that thing and die every day. And I had a Grandma Caesar while I'm driving in my truck. And I should have died that day. You know, I could have and should have died that day. And I know, you know, my God of my understanding, who I choose to call God, get off drugs, great outdoors, gift of desperation, group of drug addicts, whatever you want to call it, as long as it's not you, scooped me up, man, and said, you come with me, young man, you know, come with me. And I'm just grateful that I was able to channel that up to this point and stay clean for 3 years. So yeah, the more I give it out, the more I receive it. And steps are the key to everything. They're the keys to freedom, man. You don't have a choice. Be free today. Work those steps. Don't come in here and just listen and think that, like, you're that person now. Don't work like that. Milan, I'm sorry.
Love you, brother.
Love you.
And just again, Chris, today's topic is S.T.E.P.S, STEPS, the solution to every problem solved. Can you tell us what that means to you and why you were happy to come and discuss this with us today?
Sure. So solutions to every problem solved. Yeah. What that means today is, if I apply the principles and the actions that are laid out in this literature, I should expect a solution. I should expect results. I should expect freedom. Particularly with relief from the obsession that one day I can use or drink like a gentleman. But it turns out that they work for almost any other issue. You know, what this program has me doing and the way that I understand this program is that I become, through working these steps, I am becoming, rather, God reliant, not sponsor reliant, not fellowship reliant, not boss reliant, and certainly not self-reliant. I'm becoming God reliant. So oftentimes today, for, like almost every day, I can see where I am still agnostic to the concept of inviting God into a problem that I'm experiencing. And then I can remember, like, well, like God has restored me to sanity with respect to alcohol. God has brought so much beauty into my life. Why would I continue to be agnostic? Why do I think he can't solve this problem when he has solved so many other ones? And so then I apply all of these spiritual tools that have been laid at my feet freely, and they work every freaking time. They work every freaking time, and it gets faster and it gets faster. And so when it says solutions to every problem solved, like, you just become more efficient because you've practiced, you're doing this all of the time. You know, what solutions to every problem solved means to me, like the step I can most closely relate it to would be step 10, which has us in a constant state of watching. We are watching for resentment. We are watching for dishonesty. We are watching for fear. We are watching for selfishness. And when those things perk up, the next thing, as soon as we see those, we turn and we ask our higher power for help immediately. Then at once we discuss it with another person, ideally an alcoholic if they're available, or a drug addict, because they're working the same program and we speak the same language. And then after we've kind of, maybe we need to do a little 4 if it's a big problem. Maybe we just do like a quick, like, write something down on the back of a paper if you need to write it down, or you can just talk it through with that person. And then you go right back in to helping another person. Again, if it can be an alcoholic, great, like, stick within the program, but just go help another person. Just like go, if you really need to just like get out of yourself, like, go help somebody across the street, help somebody put their groceries in their car, call a friend who you know is struggling. Like, there's so many different options.
Give the homeless man $1. Go get a
Yeah,
homeless man $1.
whatever it is, like, the options are endless. It can be big, small, medium. Just don't go, like, get out of, oftentimes I'll find myself in self-pity. I'll find myself in that vibration of victim, of self-victim, in the role of victim. And when I'm in the role of victim, I'm sitting in fear, I'm sitting in shame, I'm sitting in a vibration of where I'm very uncomfortable. And so I work these steps, and I move from victim to maybe survivor, or victim and then survivor to thriver. And then, ideally we're getting to, more of a liberator, and sharing this thing that works with other people, so we can all experience the love, hope, and peace and joy that a connection with a higher power provides. So that is what steps. That's what that means to me.
Love that, man.
That was awesome. I'm really grateful you came on. Anyway, for anybody who's out there, I met Chris down in Mexico at a beautiful little AA meeting that occurs in Sayulita. And it was, he just gave a really profound share that kind of went through the steps. And I was like, oh, I would love to have that on this episode. For somebody who's new in the program, I just feel that you do a phenomenal job at breaking the steps and explaining them down. And that'll, kind of happen, I think, with all the steps once we go through these questions. For me, the steps were, they were magic to begin with. Okay. Like, in myself, the phenomena of surrender. The phenomenon of surrender is still magic, like, It's like my favorite songs in the world. I don't want to learn how to play on my instrument because it takes the magic away. But the thing about surrender is that it stopped like this part of my brain that was like 30 to 70% that was like the squirrel cage of substance, like get more, use more, use more, use more, have more, save more, tomorrow more, really obsessed on it. I would like using stack, where I'd be using, thinking about using, making sure I was going to be using again. Like, and it was way too much in my brain. And surrender just like, shoot, gone. And I was like amazed. And I'm like, oh my God. And if the program and the steps stopped there, life would have still been a million times better than it had been before. But no, that was just the groundwork. Like that was just the groundwork for, hey, let's turn some hope into a little bit of faith and we're going to move forward here. And you know, and going through the steps for me was really wakening the giant, you know, that giant spirit that was like covered in drugs and alcohol for so long. And it, you know, and wiping away that haze and delusions of what I was doing in my part in my life and how I was affecting other people, because all I was caring about was me and using, and it was all like, it was all so self-centered. You know, like I remember the first time reading about, you know, it's like self-centered disease. I'm like, I'm not self-centered. Like the defensive part, I was so self-centered that I was like self-centered about being self-centered. I'm just making sure I got my share and people are nice to me. and and so it was absolutely ridiculous. And and then, you know, going through like the entire set of the steps, it's just left me profoundly different, that I can never repeat the personality traits exactly like I used to without seeing how foolish they are now. You know, like once I know what the room looks like, you can't make me unsee it. And now,
Scary boy.
but that's it. And so now, you know, I'm just I'm trying to, you know, really the thing I'm working on myself right now is strengthening that relationship with my higher power, you know, learning to try to make myself more present so that I have the opportunity for that conscious contact. Because, you know, like on many other episodes, I firmly believe that it only happens in the present moment. Yesterday's contact is not today, and tomorrow's may never happen. But the only thing we got is right now. And I'm just going to leave it there. And Andrew, you got a question for Chris? Oh, P.S. Did I say I love you guys yet? Because I love you guys.
Love you guys, man. Yeah, so my question, and then we'll go to you, Chris, and then we'll go up to Milan. For you personally, which one of the steps was the toughest for you to get through fully and complete, and why? Good one.
Well, step one, to do a real step one took me the longest. To admit to my innermost self that I am alcoholic, then my life is unmanageable, took a ton of, it took years. You know, from first exposure to the program, to actually surrendering, took it, you know, you had to essentially like just how stubborn and how arrogant and entitled and selfish and self-seeking I was. It took a lot of pain to wring that from my near cold dead hands. As I was working the program, you know, I'm also, because of all of those lovely character defects that I possess, you know, I had a lot on my step 4, hundreds of items. And so that was a lot. That was a lot to sit there and write. And I had got, you know, I would get 6 months, I would get 7 months, but I would never get through 4. And, you know, like at least around here or wherever I was recovering at the time, you know, they would say, if you don't do your 4th, you'll drink a 5th. And that was true.
I've never heard that before.
I believe that one so
That's
much.
pretty good.
And then, I mean, it's so hard to say because then there was the time that I did like an 80% fourth step, but I didn't put anything good in there because like
Shame on
I
you.
was taking that to the grave. And so
Hmm.
I did an 80% fifth and I didn't get any relief because I was still holding on to the
I'm not
huge
gonna write
rocks.
that on
Like
paper and
maybe
have
I
that
threw some
sitting in my
pebbles
house
out, but
somewhere.
like
I'm not
I'm
doing
still
that.
like, and
Yeah.
I'm like, why am I not experiencing relief? It's like, well, because you still have 90% of the pain is on your back still.
Yeah.
So, so like lots of suffering points, but I would say probably one. And I've had some rough nines. I've had some rough nines, but you know, uh, but you know, we clean up our side of the street.
No doubt. No doubt. Keep your side of the street clean, right? I love that. That was a great answer. That was a great answer. All right, Milan, I'm gonna ask you, okay?
Boom, I'm ready.
So in your personal opinion, obviously, which step was the most difficult for you to work through fully, honestly and completely, and why?
Well, okay, so number one for sure was step one because, like I said, like when I got to the, you know, what I thought was still good with hiccups stage in my addiction, that was, when I started dabbling in my white knuckling, I got this period. Like I never drank like a gentleman. There was never like I was never a gentleman, but I did, cut it down to weekends only while my daughter was in school. I did cut it down to like no hard liquor except a few times a year, and boy, those did not turn out good, you know. And and just my attempts at controlling it, my 21 months of white knuckling it and just resenting the shit out of my wife. Like that was just not a good, like, it was, I couldn't, first of all, I was like, no, I'm never admitting I'm powerless, and then second of all, I thought I could manage my life. I thought, that it was just like, oh, that's not that bad. Look at, I'm not like that. I've still got a home. I'm still like building my future, because for me, my worst addiction moments occurred during my greatest success. Like I'm a realtor. And like Chris was saying, like, man, like you go to a realtor event and try to find a straight person. Like it was like the conferences were just completely off the hook, chaotic substance abuse, And I wasn't the only one. I was like, ooh, finally I found my people. Like at least they're as wasted as me. And and I knew the second I said that I was an addict or alcoholic out loud, I could never take it back. Like it was like I knew if I said that out in front of my wife, like out loud, I'm admitting it, there would be no like dabbling or whatever the heck I thought my powerfulness was. So by far, that was the hardest one. I could go into the other ones that I struggled with, but I'm just going to leave it right there because that one, took 17 times longer than any other one.
And y'all kind of changed my answer now because I was gonna kind of go through all the stuff. Step four, yeah, that one sucks. It's long. It wasn't that hard for me though. I know what's in there, right? Milan talks about when he got done with that first step four that he was expecting this long
No, when
laundry
I
list of people.
started, not when I got done. When I started,
When you started that he was like, all right, I'm gonna have all these people lined up to tell me sorry when I get done with this. This is gonna be so great. And then
I'm gonna
as
have
he's
it
going
all
through it,
written
he's
down.
like, hold on, that's me. Hold on, this is me. This is a me problem, right? It's a me problem. Um, what I was originally gonna say was nine. You hit on nine, man. Making that amends is really tough. When you do it thoroughly, and we're not talking about just saying sorry to people, man. Like this is like physical, mental, like financial amends. You know what I mean? Like if you stole from somewhere, you're supposed to figure out how to make an amends to that building that you stole from. And there's a lot of ways to do it. But then y'all hit on step one, and that's where I kind of was leaning at the beginning. But then I was like, I'm gonna come through with the step nine stuff, and then but step one for sure, man, because I having to finally get the courage to come out and be like, I'm an addict, I'm a drug addict. I can't unsay that. I can't unsay those words. And I think there were times, late in my addiction when I was getting ready to get out of it, that I was using drugs for the simple fact that I didn't want to come out and say I was a drug addict. Like Like it wasn't doing, we used drugs. I used drugs for so long that it wasn't, I would just use and use and use. And then what happens is the drugs, it's not that they don't work. It's just that, well, yeah, they don't work anymore. Right. They just don't do the same thing. And then we have a big problem. We have a
They
big
were like
problem with that part.
maintenance instead of pleasure at the end.
Man, bro,
It was like maintenance, not pleasure at the end. Really.
it's maintenance, and it's like shitty maintenance.
Oh,
Like
oh yeah.
just taping it to get, like taping the shit together to get to work, and then taping it together to get back home.
It's like
You
putting air
know?
in your flat tire halfway to work
Yes,
and then
yes,
home.
yes, yes. And I heard one thing: a shortcoming is like a flat tire, and a character defect is like driving on it. Like, it's just what we do in active addiction, right? So step one, actually having such a courageous act, whether you're forced to do it or whatever, to actually come out and say I'm a drug addict. And I don't care if the court's forcing you or whatever, but like no one's forcing you to say that and come out and be like I'm a drug addict. But step one, yeah, the complete surrender, and also that's when you're coming out of that fog too, so you don't really know why you're doing this. You're taking these suggestions because the only suggestions we pay for, Mr. Chris, are the ones we don't take. You're taking these suggestions, hopefully, and you start answering these questions. And in the step working guide that I work in the fellowship that I attend, there's 69 questions in the first step. And when I get, when I'm going through that with my sponsor, right, like we might not even get through one, and we might be talking on the phone for 3 hours. We might get through one question. And but that's life. What else? Why wouldn't I do that for myself? Right? Like, why wouldn't I go there for myself? Because I have to get myself right. Right. I can't do anything else for anybody else. Like, my best critical thinking got me here. I use drugs as an artificial means to get my spiritual connection that I'm looking for. We're all born spiritual beings. And I was using drugs thinking I was connected when I was running the whole time from it because I had nothing to offer him. Now I have I have these books, I have the step working, I have steps that I work. I have a practical means to gain that spiritual experience that I'm looking for. It's an open book test. Yeah, it's the hardest open book test you're going to ever take. But you don't got to study for this test. Just get your ass in here and get some willingness going on, and get you some spiritual principles, and just thaw out for a little bit. I want to run through this real quick because Milan likes when I do this. Steps 1 through 3 get you right with God. Steps 4 through 6 get you right with you. Steps 7 through 9 get you right with others, right? Step 10, which is God's gift to me. It's my daily reprieve, man. It keeps me and maintains me, right? It gets me right and keeps me maintaining myself. Step 10 maintains that relationship with God, and then it brings it back home with 12 and maintaining my relationship with other people. Right? A lot of people come in here and just go, what is this step work? What does this step work? If you break it down in that way, like, you can go, okay, you can formulate a plan, even though you really don't know what's going on. Like, you're going to get right with God first. You're going to get right with yourself second. You're going to get right with others. And then my step 10, 11, and 12 are my aces in the hole, man. We work these steps, and and it's all self-work, right? We're all working on ourselves, keeping on ourselves on the top of that resentment list. All this shit that we do, we got to make amends to ourselves before everybody else. Work all these steps for ourselves, and then we turn around and hit step 12, and what happens, Chris? We realize it has nothing to do with us. It ain't got nothing to do with us, man. The opposite of my disease is connection, is community, is service. You hit on it earlier. If you want to get out of your head, go do something nice for somebody, man. Go give that homeless dude $1. Go open the door for somebody. I promise you, by the time you get back home, you'll feel better. And the best way out of my own head and my own like depression and that thinking when I'm getting in that neighborhood I don't want to get caught in at night, that neighborhood that we don't like to be in, is a simple, meaningful conversation with another person. It can be so simple, man. We make this shit so hard. And we think we're alone. And there's hundreds of thousands, but not millions of people going through the same shit you're going through right now and been through it clean and can tell you how they do it. Because what their one purpose is to do that. And it's getting them better while they're teaching you how to do that. This thing is magical, man. This thing is magical. But don't come into a 12-step program and not work the steps. Don't come into a fellowship and not read the books. We don't have 17,000 books that you have to read, man. There's just a few of them. And you wrote them. So read them, man. Like if you got a question about yourself, read the books. It's in the books.
I'll read it
Get
to
somebody. Yeah, exactly. Get a sponsorship. Service is a posture of the heart. Go do service. Go to a business meeting. You'll learn some things. Go to a business meeting. You'll learn some things. And so, do a little stuff. Do a little self-work. Man, you don't know who you are yet if you have not worked the steps. Introduce yourself to yourself for the first time. Let your family know who you are for the first time. Do not go out of this world without at least giving yourself that luxury, man. Don't do it. It's not worth it. Your family deserves to know who you are. You deserve to know who you are, man. This world deserves to know who you are. And if you're in these rooms right now, God, all these prayers that we pray in and out and all the, we pray in these still second suffering addicts into these rooms. Be grateful that one of those prayers hit in your direction. And don't take that shit for granted. Like, oh, I'm gonna go back out and just chance that one of those things are gonna just hit my direction again. Cause it might not. It might not, man. So I put a lot of I put a lot into the people of this program because I get a lot out of them, right? Like I can't let these people down. Right? Because they haven't let me down. So I'm done. Sorry.
You got a question for me now, Chris?
Yes, I do. Let's see.
See, I'll change it from I was step 9 to step 1. So I agree with you guys.
All right. I like this one. I think this is a good one. So Milan, what does it truly mean to make a decision in step 3? And how can somebody recognize when they're still holding on to control?
So this is something that, gosh, I feel like I'm reviewing all the time with my sponsor. I've had 2 sponsors, and so the sponsor, my second sponsor, that I feel, that I feel like I was a better fit overall. My first sponsor was kind of like my training wheels, and now this sponsor is kind of like my racing coach. where the first one, it was great coming out of treatment, and we had some great conversations. But getting down to the nitty gritty, I feel like we talk about this one a lot, and it's something, it's real tricky because being so self-centered, I think there's a lot of times we think that we're turning our will over, and we're not. And so, for me, it's really boiling down to, when in doubt, make sure that every action isn't crossing a spiritual principle line. Because if I'm living inside the spiritual principles, then I am definitely, living inside that will, because that will is sort of defined by that true nature of those spiritual principles. It's almost like the laws of physics, how they govern particles. I feel like is that the spiritual principles keep us inside that envelope of what would be God's will. Like, am I being honest? What is my motive here? What is my motive? Is my motive still my motive? Or is it for the greater good? And so it's, oh, gosh, I feel that more now than ever, I'm really every morning now, I'm praying for the knowledge of his will and the power to carry that out. Like it's just something that I feel like I realized I was trying to take back in ways that I wasn't even aware of. And so now, you know, that decision is there, and I'm just trying every single day to enhance
Like
my
every
efficacy of execution. In a conversation that I had just a week ago with my sponsor, you know, it was talking about, he said for himself that he's trying to focus on bringing himself closer to his higher power, right? And generally, when he's closer to his higher power, he's not acting out on so many defects. He's not acting out on his own will so much. So when he feels like that dis-ease, he's like, whoa, am I close to God? How do I get close to God? And it's more of his focus of getting close to God that keeps him inside God's will. And I'm not really sure if that answered it at all, but this is definitely something that is currently something I'm thinking about a lot, and I'm trying to enhance in my life a lot, because I'm realizing that it's a folly to think that I'm going to get rid of my defects. You know, it's that I need help to get rid of them, just like I needed help to get rid of my addiction. And and I have to learn how to surrender in that same way, because the one surrender was so great. The other one, it's like, why is that not surrendering? It's like as if there's no catch on the switch, and it's like, think, think. Anyway, there's my answer.
perfect. Will you ask me again, please, Mr. Chris?
Yeah, of course.
You'll find that we're
Uh,
gonna do this like the whole podcast. We get lost in each other's answers, and we need
no,
like
you're good. You're good.
reminders.
So what does it truly mean to make a decision in step 3? And how can you realize when you're still holding on to control?
Okay. Yeah, well, it took a long time to get to that breaking point. Where you actively decide to turn your back on active addiction, and turn your will over, right, to that God of your understanding. It's probably one of the biggest decisions you can make, one of the biggest decisions I've ever made in my life, if not the biggest decision I've ever made in my life, the toughest decision I've ever made in my life. And it's not really just a choice, right? It's a commitment. It's a difference between just having making a choice and like actually committing to something and like apply that to you so that you can live that going forward. Step 3 is all about faith, guys. Step 3 is all about faith, finding answers in the hurt, right? And faith is huge, man. Faith doesn't make it easy. It makes it possible, right? Having faith and taking taking that first step without seeing the whole staircase. That's what faith is all about. Faith is extremely huge, but being able to find that God of my understanding early on, I was told to look into all the religions and do all this studying just to see where I was at with it personally, I choose to call my higher power God, but this is a spiritual, not religious program that I attend, and spirituality can be what you want it as long as it's not you. Right? It doesn't have to be this deity or, Jesus with long hair that walks on water. As long as it's not you, as long as it's bigger than you, and when you pray to it, it talks back. And I heard somebody say one time that religion is for people who don't want to go to hell, and spirituality is for people who've been to hell and don't want to go back. I don't want to go back to hell, man. I've been there and back and back and back, right? And as an addict, it's not that we messed up, it's we messed up again and again and again and again, right? And so I got to stay faithful in my endeavors because I know my blessings are out there. My God's power of love, which love is the answer for everything for me. My God's power of love created all my blessings. I wasn't able to see that until 3 years ago. Like, they're all out there right now. And as long as I stay in that step 3, right, that faithful spot, like, that faith is going to time each one of those blessings. I'm going to have timing on those blessings. And in addition to that, because I'm not fucked up, like, I'm going to remember where those blessings came from. And they hit so much harder when you remember where your blessings came from. They hit so much harder when you actually realize that you did some work to get that blessing, and that you should be proud of yourself for that coming across your table, right? It's a beautiful way to live. You know, I can't, self-will is not where I need to be because my best critical thinking got me here. Until I figure out that I am not it, I'm not going anywhere in this program. And it does say if you work these steps that it's guaranteed you're going to have a spiritual awakening, right? It says in step 12, like, after having a spiritual awakening as a result of working these steps. So if you don't know what a spiritual awakening is, again, here we go. Work the steps.
Expect a miracle.
Expect a miracle. Look, lean it. Look, accept and then act, right? Don't act and then try to accept what's going on after you've already acted, right? Accept the present moment as if you willed it to be that way. Try to train your mind to accept the moment as if you willed it to be that way. Accept it and then act, right? It's a big difference than doing it the other way. You got to lean into these things, right? As if you made it that way. You can't lean. Exactly. If you want to fly, guys, you gotta let that shit go. That all that stuff that's weighing you down, you gotta let it go. You've got to let that stuff go. And whatever is happening is gonna happen, right? We cannot be worrying about why it happened and how it happened. Just, it happened. It's happening, right? You got to we focus on all these problems and then and the differences. We need to focus on the solution and the similarities, right? Because I'm gonna complicate my way out before I even get in here as an addict. But if you sit in here and it's about attraction rather than promotion. We come on here, we share honesty. Got to be honest, or we're not going to be connected to anything. And you can't be using drugs, man. You can't have any of these substances in your system and think that like you're connected to God. You're just connected to your brain thinking that you feel good or whatever, whatever's going on at the time, right? You're just going to justify why it's okay that you're in that spot. We'll justify anything. But like in these programs, come as you are, don't stay as you are. Do a little bit of work, and we accept everybody. But this addiction thing, it's the only disease that has us flat out convinced we don't have it. But right, Chris, it's the only disease we can talk our way out of too. We don't need drugs to get our way out of this thing. We can talk our way out of this thing. And that's a much easier plate to munch on than maintenance Medicaid or whatever, whatever you're trying to do, substituting this for this and that for that. No, we can talk our way out of this thing, man. Got to be honest. Honest sharing is the antidote to what the hell we got going on up here. Because my brain wants me dead. My ego is going to edge God out every time. My ego and pride. Pride stands for one of the primary reasons I die early. Don't let that pride get in the way, man. It's not worth it. Humble yourself. I'm done.
Thanks, Andrew. Milan. Yeah, I mean, let me look at my own question.
See, he's one of the boys already. Yeah, when you got to read yourself your own question.
All right, what does it mean to truly make a decision? All right, what does it mean to truly make a decision in step 3? So yeah, I mean, in the literature that I read, in the doctor's opinion, it talks about there's some simple rules that we have to follow if we want this program to work, and they're not easy, but they're simple. That we trust in God, clean house, help others. It's that simple. Like, if you want to break the program down into a sentence, like, it's right there. That is the crux of the program. And that trust in God is our foundation. Like, that is where we start, because that, like, step 1, when I surrendered, I cleared away enough space that I had a foundation upon which I could build. But this is a program of action. And so I quickly move into step 2, which is the beginning of faith. it's laying a cornerstone of faith, if you will, because basically you have completed step 2, or I completed step 2. I'll speak in the first person. I completed step 2 when I could honestly answer that I now believe, or I was at least willing to believe, that a God of my understanding could restore me to sanity.
It's your hope step. That's your hope step. Hope into faith, right?
Hope, yeah. Like, yeah, but willingness, like I'm willing
Yes.
I am now willing to believe that. Like,
Yes.
yeah, hope, I like you're right, hope step. And then if we're going to faith, I think you're right. So like, that is, but it's a cornerstone. Like you've got to do a good 2 if you're gonna succeed in 3. Like, just, I know a lot of people that are like, yeah, I did 1, 2, 3 in a day. I'm like, really? Like,
No, you didn't. No, you
yeah,
didn't.
like, that's easy. I got that. And you're like, okay,
I don't even know
but,
you, but no, you didn't. No,
yeah.
you didn't.
But then like to like where I want to go with this is what it truly means to make a decision. Okay, I've got the hope, I've got the foundation. Okay, like, but what am I making a decision about? And like in the AA book, it's like right after pertinent ideas A, B, and C, which most meetings will read every single day, that I am alcoholic and that my life is unmanageable, that probably no human power could restore me to sanity, and that C, God could and would if God were sought. If he were sought, the only requirement is that you seek. And so being, the next line right after that, which we don't read very often, says being convinced of these things, we are then ready to make a 3rd step. But it says there are conditions. Like, this is a conditional thing. Like, what am I really doing here? Okay, well, you're going to have to assume some roles. You're going to have to stop playing director. You're going to have to be the actor. You cannot direct and act in this. You're going to have to take a subservient role. And because you believe that no human power, which includes yourself, could restore you to sanity, you're asking for help. So you're looking to a director. And then you take the role of, I am just the agent. I am not the principal. I am not the lead here. I am just an agent. I'm an agent of God. I am here as an agent of God, is what I like to think about it.
Call it a vessel. I'm a vessel.
Yeah, well, that I use Lord, make me a vessel of thy peace, that I may see.
Good man.
And then the last one, and a lot of people are going to get hung up on this, because I am so grateful that I do not have religious trauma, and many people do. But you have to assume the role of son and not father. You have to, but like the ideal father. This is the ideal father that you're committing to. The father that cares, the father that protects, the father that teaches with kindness and compassion. And you are accepting the role of son to learn. And so that's the conditional relationship that you're setting up here when you then say, like, okay, I am assuming these roles and I am ready to make a decision to play those roles and to then turn my will and my life over to a God of my understanding. And then the one that like I said it, but I didn't actually really experience it. It got deeper, is I didn't really want to let go of the bondage of self so that I could better do God's will. It took me a while. I held on to that, but it is key. And that's when the surrender gets deeper and the relief and the freedom gets better, is when you really internalize and have an experience with these words. Just saying them like a spell, nothing is going to happen. You need to take them into a state of prayer and meditation and have an experience with this. Say the words, feel them, experience them in your body, and then listen. And then, the last part is when you're making a decision, you're asking God to take away all of your difficulties so that you can show others the love, power, and way of life. And I really think that I'm and then the second part is, how do you know when you're still holding on to control? Well, you'll see that you're playing one of those 3 roles. You're either being director, you're trying to be principal, you want to run the show, you're outcome focused, you're results oriented, you want an exact result. You've given that up, though, because when I say a 3rd step every morning, followed by a 7th. I actually kind of preface it to get myself in the right frame of mind. I thank God for giving me my free will back overnight. And I say, but I don't want that. I know that on my own will, I cannot live free.
Yeah.
And so then I say, like, from that position, I begin my prayer. And that's it.
Do you agree with this, Chris, that at the moment you think about control, you're out of control?
Absolutely. But the problem is I can't see it all the time. But
That's a
I'm
great
getting
answer.
better. It's progress, not perfect. Not perfect.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Milan.
Well, that was awesome.
That was dope.
I love and appreciate you, Chris, and I'm grateful you're here. And you know I love and appreciate you, Andrew. But
Be
I'll say
back,
it
man.
again, and I'm grateful
Please
you're
do.
here.
Please do.
Yeah. Okay. Unless each AA or NA or whatever denomination you want to say member follows to the best of his ability our suggested 12 steps to recovery, he almost certainly signs his own death warrant. His drunkenness and dissolution are not penalties inflicted by people in authority. They result from his personal disobedience to spiritual principles. Can you share the experience of your spiritual awakening and how you maintain a life lived with spiritual principles, Andrew?
Yeah, you and your long ass
Gulp.
questions, boy. I'm telling you, boy. I gotta have an assistant for your questions. My spiritual awakening, man. I remember growing up, and I would walk into church, and you get that feeling, right? That's just that feeling you can't explain. I always knew there was a God, but I couldn't really come to terms with what that was. I wasn't like a church, I wasn't taken to church as a kid a lot or anything like that. But in terms of like my actual spiritual awakening, I've always believed in God. I've always believed in something else going on. I know that we're not just all sitting here walking around having these feelings and doing what we're doing just by chance. That's my opinion, at least. And so I remember I was actually in rehab when I had a spiritual awakening, and I didn't even know what that was yet. They'd make us go to NA or AA meetings once a day, and I would hear about the spiritual awakening thing. But again, I can't even hardly retain information at this point, right? I'm coming out of drugs, man. I'm in that fog, I'm just trying to get through the day. And as I started clearing out, it was like 2 or 3 weeks. I was 2 or 3 weeks into it, and I was in an inpatient facility. And I remember having like little feelings when we would have meetings and something like good would happen, and I would lean into that. But I remember I walked outside one day, and there was a guy who was real religious and would always talk about God. And he would actually say he would label himself as a vessel from God. And the guy was kind of crazy, but like I understood what his meaning was to me at that point, right? I was taking in what I needed. And we, the only thing you can do in rehab is smoke cigarettes. So we all professionally smoke cigarettes. Some rehabs you can't even smoke cigarettes. So we had walked outside. It was like a really sunny day. And I forget exactly what I was going through. I was going through some shit. And I was one of those guys that when I was in rehab, you see all those guys that are on the phone constantly. I wasn't on the phone at all. I didn't want to talk to anybody. I didn't want to call my family and admit I'm an addict and go through all that, man. I was just trying to stay alive and figure out what's going on next. And I've always been a real in tune person, like with my feelings, and I've always been a compassionate, genuine person. And I've always looked to help people, man. I've always looked to help people. And I remember the day that we walked outside that day, and we were having a conversation about what was going on, and he had mentioned God's tears, and right when he started mentioning that, it started this really light rain outside, and it was real sunny, and I can't, man. When I start talking about it, it's like my whole body starts shaking. It's like crazy, but I knew God was looking at me at that point, right? When he said that, I'm talking like everything like slowed down. I can't even explain it to you. Like we looked up and I could like see every raindrop, and it wasn't raining. I'm talking about, that light mist that comes down. And and God was having a conversation with me at that point. And my God was, right. And it wasn't like a word for word verbatim. He pumped me full of so much. There's no words. I can't explain it. Right. He pumped me full of like, hey, bro, I'm here and I'm watching you, and you're not alone. You don't got to do this by yourself. And, bro, I cried. And it was kind of crazy because I was still trying to come to terms with what had kind of happened. Um, and then like 2 or 3 days later, I was having an issue kind of with the same shit. And I walk outside, and as soon as I lit up a cigarette, it started that same light rain started. And it ended up happening like 5 times, specifically in a certain situation, like when we would start talking about it or something. And it blew my fucking mind, man. It blew my mind. And then the day I got home from rehab, I was explaining to my mother what had happened. And as we were unloading the shit out of my car, and it wasn't supposed to rain or anything that day, like it wasn't like cloudy or anything like that. We were getting all the shit out of the car to come in from like rehab and shit, and it started that light rain as I was explaining it to her. And again, you have to kind of be there to understand it. But I was working on myself. I had figured out that I didn't want to do drugs anymore. And when you don't want to do drugs anymore, you're searching for something other than video games. And like, so like you need something. You need that, right? So when it happens, you got to be clean to be able to accept it and know what that is. And then you got to be willing after that to like take hold of that. Be like, hey man, there's something out there watching me and all this stuff. I'm alive today because of that. And I'm grateful for all the shit that I went through to get me here. Right. And now that I know that I'm an addict, I can move forward with his help. And God speaks through people. My God speaks through people. Right. And I knew that a long time ago. But I hear the message when I come to these meetings, man. I make a lot of meetings, Chris. It's really hard to use drugs or drink in a meeting. Right. If you want to drink or use drugs, go to a meeting. We got 24-hour meetings. You can go sleep in that bitch for a week if you want to. And so I stay in the message. Man, I got to adapt my life to the program and not try to adapt the program to my life, or it's not going to work. But yeah, that's I don't even know what I was kind of getting off of that. Yeah, the spiritual awakening thing is so look, and it's not about just having this one spiritual awakening, or like you don't expect it. Just do this stuff we're at. Just take the suggestions and work the work, and be honest with yourself, and give yourself a little compassion. Put down that bat, pick up a feather, and you might get spiritual awakenings all the time. Everybody's different. And it's not defined. I've heard the most spiritual person in the room is the one that can be most honest with how spiritual they can be. It's about meeting people where they're at. And so whatever your spiritual experience it is, embrace that shit, man, and lean into it, because it's gonna look after you for the rest of your life. Don't try to like complicate it. Just let it happen. So, but that was my spiritual experience. Thank you for asking me. Thank you for letting me relive that.
Awesome. Chris, do you want me to reread the question?
I think I'm all right. Like, I think
Okay.
we're just going on spiritual
Sure.
experience, spiritual awakening.
Sure. Yeah.
I got I do just well, I'll try to do it myself, but there's something I want to read because it's so beautifully written, I think, in this.
Do it. Go for it.
I'll get to it, but I'll go with my what I wanted to say first is, like, again, this the exercises, the action that is within this book sets us up to have a whole slew of spiritual experiences, and either one of them or the sum of many of them culminates in a spiritual awakening. And we you know, a lot of people don't like the word woke, but we become spiritually woke. And we're aware. It brings an awareness of God, of spirit. And, you know, and it is for me when I made like, and for me, it happened at step 3. For some people, it happens at step 5. For some people, it's 6, 7. Some people 9. A lot of people talk about 9. You know, and then some people 11. Like whatever it is, like whatever that pinnacle experience is. First of all, it's probably not always going to be the pinnacle because, like Andrew was saying, it's limitless. It only grows and grows. That's the best fucking thing about this. Like when I sit in meditation every morning, I'm addicted to meditation, which is great because like the relief and the freedom that I get from connection with my higher power is not only comparable, it blows out the relief that I got from drugs and alcohol. And if I didn't have something to replace the relief that I got from drugs and alcohol, if I was just taking away and I wasn't adding in, this wouldn't work for me. I wouldn't still be here being sober. You know, like that isn't how it was going to be. So when I took that 3rd step from that position of feeling absolutely crushed, like my body had been broken into nothingness, and all I could do there is ask for help because I had nowhere left to turn. It felt like I was making a decision to jump off of a cliff and I didn't know where the bottom was. And I landed in a pool of unconditional love that was like the warmest, most perfectly temperatured water that you ever could have experienced, that was wrapped in just pure ecstasy. Like I do not have the words. And so that is the origin of these spiritual experiences. But I knew that if I didn't keep doing the work, I wouldn't be able to have continuous contact with that spontaneous experience that I had. And I will read the book because I think it's so fucking great. Is like, the great fact is just this and nothing less, that we have had deep and effective spiritual experiences which have revolutionized our whole attitude toward life, toward our fellows and towards God, toward our fellows and towards God's universe. The central fact of our lives today is the absolute certainty that our Creator has entered into our hearts and lives in a way which is indeed miraculous. He has commenced to accomplish those things for us which we could never do by ourselves. So being able to, like, when you can relate to that last sentence, when you can say that your higher power has commenced to accomplish things for you that you could never accomplish for yourselves, when you can look back and see that, now that is being spiritually awake. That is the magic, the miracle, you know? None of us liked all the work that we had to do because it's painful. It's painful work that, you know, all the confession, all the self-searching, the reparations that we have to do to get there. You know, it's but we get to do that. And then we end up on the other side and we're so lucky that we made it through this deep pain and suffering. Like Andrew said, like we've been to hell. We know what it's like. That's why we're seeking a spiritual solution, not a religious one. Religion is for people that don't want to go to hell. Spirituality is for people that are ready. You know, like yeah, like it, like, and so, you know, I do read a lot of spiritual, like I read a cross section of spiritual literature because I find universal truths throughout all of it, and I love like I love to see the through line of it and to read different people's stories because I don't have the language to express what it is, but I experience it on a daily basis, and I'm so lucky and so grateful that I have been blessed with that. That I am seeking to find the language that will hopefully have others seek a similar solution.
Love that. Love that. Hey, since he read that, I want to read this real quick out of the Living Clean in our literature. You'll like this. Yeah. Page 56. We each find a way to surrender, but that does not mean we all come to believe in God. Many of our members have been clean for years as atheists. For some of us, coming to believe that NA can accommodate our atheism has itself been a leap of faith. We are welcome no matter what we believe. NA has no opinion on how our members define or practice spirituality. Our individual challenge is to find a definition of spirituality that makes sense to us. By listening carefully with an open mind to a range of members' opinions and experiences, we form an understanding that we can use in our own recovery.
Boom.
So that's boom, done. That's kind of, it doesn't have to be God. It doesn't have to, you know, as long as it's not you, man. It's not defined.
So
Yeah.
for myself, it was, you know, that heart stopping, dying in the hospital moment that that was really the turning point of everything. Like I remember waking up the next day and it was like a relief where I'm like, okay, that's over. Like I was like, I'm not going back to there. And at that point, I was willing to do anything. Like I was just like, that's done. Like I can't, I'm not going back to that precipice under my own accord. And then when you know, I went from there to home, kind of got my affairs together and detoxed, and then went to treatment. When I showed up there, you know, it was like right away, I was just shown a really fine example of people working hard in their program. They'd all been there 4 to 6 weeks before me, the people there. And I was just like following suit. They were hard into their steps. And it just clicked for me. Like it clicked right away. The surrender part for my substance and my mind, it was so relieving that it opened the door for going further inside my steps. And when I did my step 4, I guess like you, Chris, like I really wanted to get rid of my stuff. Mine was like 120 pages. My step 6 was like another 60. You know, like I'm telling you, man, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna get this shit. Like, I'm gonna get, you know, like I want it all gone here. You know, and they're like, no, don't put so many. And I'm like, how is that searching? How is that fearless? You know, like do a mild moral inventory. That's not what it says. It doesn't say skirt about your moral inventory issues and get no relief. Like
I can see you writing till your hand falls off, and you're just
dude,
like,
it was
tired
like I needed another fucking book. Like I was like, okay, this
you're
book
like
is-
writing book,
Yeah.
book, another book. I need another one,
Yeah,
another
it was
one.
like here's the stack. And but it was doing my step 5 that for me was the major awakening. Like I remember it was a cloudy day, not raining, cloudy day though. It was fall, you know, and gray like coastal gray, you know, gray like a Portland gray. But and I remember coming downstairs afterwards and it just felt like there was like sunshine everywhere. You know, like I remember looking at the landscaping bricks and just feeling like, man, that's the most perfect patio ever. Like I was just in such bliss at that moment. Like my guilt and shame were so relieved inside that step 5 that I was like, had tears of joy for almost 36 hours. Like every time I start talking to someone, I'd start crying. I was just like, poof. And you know, and I don't have the words to describe exactly it, except it was good. It was like there was good there. Like it was like, you know, it was not an evil force. It was the force of good. It was the force of like serenity was happening. There was a joy as a consequence of it that, you know, like I couldn't, and there was relief. There was like a feeling of relief, like for probably the first time where I just wasn't alone. I didn't feel alone anymore, you know, and you know, for me, that that forever changed what I want to do with myself on a day-to-day basis. You know, like an experience like that, you know, like sometimes slowly, sometimes quick, you know, but for me, there was a profound moment of change. And I have little profound moments. Like, I mean, I really try to practice gratitude in the morning, and I walk my dogs and I see the universe. Like, I mean, I live somewhere beautiful, and it's like real easy to feel connected to the universe when you're watching the sunrise over the mountains and it's going on the thing and it's like hills lit up and like, I mean, you want to talk the essence of the universe. It's like it's glowing in front of me every morning, and that's part of how I start my day. But you know, it's you know, do, trying to do my meditation, doing my service, praying, doing my own inventory, and that helps me live inside the principles. You know, it's holding on in those moments where I've just like lost my way for a bit, and I'm like, whoa, I need to like recenter myself and to pull myself out of a situation for a few minutes and try to, you know, either just through prayer or some kind of meditation or just like, you know, for me right now, one thing I'm finding is that when I'm getting really off center is to just go on another walk. Like just go on another walk, put on a song or not, and just to like be on the road with my dogs. And for some reason, that's like a really good soul cleanser for me. You know, there's a lot of God inside dogs. Like they just love you every fucking time. You
And
might
your
be
nature.
they
You're
might be a
outside in nature.
jerk. You might be whatever. They're always like talk about unconditional love. You walk in the house and they're like, "You're fucking awesome. You're fucking awesome. I love you. I love you. I
You
love
could
you. I
walk
love-"
in, beat the shit out of that dog, and he's gonna come right back and sit up in the chair with you.
He's gonna be like, "Please, just love me some more." But
Yeah, man. We could
Yeah,
live off
anyway,
the
trees,
dog.
man, nature,
yeah,
Mother Nature.
And look, it makes
yeah.
you work on your breathing too, Milan. When you're out walking, you're constantly you have to concentrate on your breathing. Our
Yeah.
breathing controls our thoughts, right? Like a lot of times we'll get into a situation and we're all tensed up or we get wrapped up
Mhm.
and get anxious. We're not breathing. We stop breathing. We don't even.
Yoga has helped me expand my chest where, you know, when from doing cocaine and other drugs, I know from sitting and being so hyper flexed from the drugs that there was ways I wasn't breathing till I started getting into the yoga. And like some of the back breathing when you're like laying on your stomach and you're doing some of the moves and the breath, it's like I'm relearning to breathe through that.
It's beautiful.
And there's a lot more space in there than drugs gave it space for. But consequently, that changes how long you can breathe for in one stroke, you know, and conversations, but also just like fluidity, like shallow breathing. Like that keeps you in a fight or flight state. But a
Yes.
lot of
Yes.
times people don't have the lung capacity anymore to get beyond that. You know, like I was really screwed up from cigarettes and drugs when I first got clean. And now, like I swear, I think I probably got 3 times the lung capacity of what I had.
You're not thinking about active breathing. When you're in active addiction, you're just flying through the shit, man. What are we worrying about breathing for when you're in active addiction, man? You're just
I don't know. I had to breathe sometimes. Sometimes, like the universe
but
was
you
like,
know
"You're
what I
on your
mean.
own. Like you have to think to breathe when you
You
get
try
that
to
high."
let air in, the drugs are like, bro, I got this room. Y'all ain't no, I'm good. I'm good. Y'all can't your
Yeah.
oxygen can't come in here. No.
Okie dokie, you're up, Andrew.
For a question or for
Yeah,
I thought you were up for a question.
No, I just asked everybody the question. I just
Okay.
answered my own.
Okay. All right, cool. Well then are you so for you currently, and I know AA and NA is a little bit different. I think it takes us a little longer in NA to work the steps in ours, but are you currently in a round of steps? What round of steps you're in? What step are you in? And tell us a little bit about it.
I just finished steps, but I've got a sponsee that is working steps.
Cool. Tell us about it.
We just finished the preface and the forewords to edition 1, 2, 3, and 4. We'll be doing Doctor's Opinion, which is one of my favorites. I love the beginning of the book. It was such a profound experience for me to realize that I had a disease. And that I was very, very sick. and that that I had lost the power of choice. That is an aspect of the disease that I have, is that, you know, once I put a drug or drink into my body, I cannot stop. It is a physical allergy. I am not morally defective. I have a disease. And, you know, and then I have, you know, like, I have, there's a peculiar mental twist that our literature calls it, you know, that just if I did it a little bit differently next time, maybe the outcome wouldn't be the same. So that subtle insanity that exists there, and to have a doctor, one of the foremost doctors on the East Coast, writing this, saying that this solution, what these people are doing here, works, when he can't. He treated 50,000 something addicts, and he was like, I don't know, these guys got it though. Like, I fucking swear by it. Like, if you do this stuff, this will work. Like, and so like it's got hope in there, and it's just got so much truth. For me, honestly, right now, you know, we finished the steps, and I'm going back to some just like ideals that I want, and like
Taking a
prioritize.
little downtime from the
Yeah,
steps.
yeah,
I like
yeah.
it.
We're
I
doing
like it. Like
like
vacation.
we're doing a little bit of just like what are some of these? We're gonna dive into the traditions in a few weeks, but like,
There you
you know,
go.
we just finished the first
Yeah.
164. So
Yep.
you know, but yeah, I love working with other people. I got a sponsee who's just killing it right now. And yeah, was there another part of the question or no?
Oh, it was you summed it up. You summed it up pretty
Yeah,
well.
that
Yeah,
was
that's good.
great.
That was good. You want me to ask you, Milan?
Of course, and I will have forgotten the question.
I know that. So where you sit currently, you know, and obviously you can talk about the NA, you know, I know you're bisexual, if you will.
But
I think I'm even like
You never
quadstepsual
have you
actually
ever
at
heard
this
that? Have
point.
you heard that, Chris?
no,
Bisexual?
I don't think I've heard it that way, but I like it though.
I've heard it a couple of times where they
Yeah.
would come in and be like, "Look, I'm bisexual," or you know,
Yeah.
it's pretty cool. So, you know, however you want to spin on it, are you currently working around of the steps, and which, you know, where are you at in there? Tell us a little bit about it, like where you're at currently.
So I've finished a set of steps kind of in the fall with my sponsor, but upon further reflection, I think there's some things I'd like to go back and do another step 4 on. And you know, that's really right now something that I want to delve into. And I was way better before, like 6 months ago to, you know, the inception of me getting clean. I was way better
Because that's
at doing a regular step 10. And that's just something
consistent.
that I want to pull back into my day. You know, I think for myself, you know, in the treatment center, we did like a daily personal inventory. And you know, I want to just kind of have something printed out that's like right by the things I take at night or where I set my necklace down, you know, that just reminds me to do that. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at with my steps and my maintenance. I'm you know, I've got a couple of sponsees. One just finished a set of the steps in just before Christmas. And so him and I are just kind of you know, reviewing the 12 steps and 12 traditions book together, just as kind of like a later overview and doing the traditions. And
Milan, you're busting up a little bit, big dog.
and I keep, you know, on him, but yeah, you do the best you can, and you know, he's worked along. Did I freeze up there?
You
Because you
did.
guys froze up.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, you froze
I don't
up.
know what you missed
But
or what you
we
didn't.
pumped through it. We pumped through it. We pumped through it. Are you with us now?
Okay, I'm good. I'm good. You go
All
ahead
right.
on it.
That was cool. That was fun. Me and Chris are like, look, like it's happening again. You're like, yeah. So I worked through the full set of steps with my last sponsor, and then I have now since changed sponsors. And God, you know, if you don't have the best sponsor in the world, you don't have the right sponsor. So I guess everyone should say that. But my sponsor now is like they fly him around the world to speak at world conventions. Like he's been, you know, 37 years clean, and he's an amazing man. And so I'm like in my graduate program set of the steps now. Again, I said when we started back on step 1, which I have not gotten through step 1 with him, And I've been working it with him for a while. And look, I've done the steps, right? I'm tapped in, and he's a savage. So again, we'll actually get on to do our scheduled step work, and we won't even get into the first question talking about leading into what we're going to talk about. Like, that's how in depth this guy is. So I'm actually on step 1 still. I'm almost done with it with him, I hope. I fucking hope. But yeah, you hit on something earlier. We're not. We don't have a moral deficiency, Chris. We're not assholes, right? And then on top of that, it has us convinced we don't have it. So we're not stupid. We're not assholes, and we're not stupid. So I came in here thinking that addicts were like the scum of the earth, man. Like people who can't drink and do drugs properly and have to go to a program to get better. I thought, like, that's not me. It's not me. Ain't me. I don't know what y'all are doing. Why? But it ain't me, right? But when I got in here and I started realizing, y'all taught me how. They said, sit down. Let us teach you how to love yourself, right? Let us love you till you learn how to love yourself again. And y'all did that shit for me. And y'all gave me these things. And so love, right? Love is our basic nature. I was able to take in that love. Like, love is in all of us, right? That's why here's my thing on love. Like, I don't think love increases in anybody. I think we're all born with love. I think it all starts with love. I think one just decreases one's hate. Does that make sense? Like you can't love one person and not love another person.
I think it's people shut down and open up their love door. I think the love's always there.
It's always there. It's always there. You just decrease your hate.
You just forgot. You have to remember.
I just
have to
think
remember
people filter
that
it, man.
too. It's impossible to love one person and not
the
another.
illusion and remember who you really are.
Yes.
Loving awareness.
Yes. Hey, look, and serenity comes when we trade expectations for acceptance. You got to accept who you are, man. Accept and then act, like we talked about it earlier. You got to accept and then act. It's about building self-acceptance and not trying to build self-esteem. I hit on that the other day too, Chris. So you have a self-acceptance, right? We're trying to get that self-acceptance. It's a lot different than self-esteem. And a lot of people get that shit mixed up, because self-esteem, there's a lot of self-evaluation in that. With self-acceptance, there is no evaluation. You're relating to yourself. It's a relating to oneself. Where self-esteem, we're trying to self-evaluate, and we're comparing in self-esteem, while in self-acceptance there is no comparisons needed, right? And when you accept yourself, you're secure. Self-acceptance is secure in its nature, while self-esteem is fragile, right? So if we're trying to build up this self-esteem, then you get into like people pleasing, right? That's the highest form of self-dishonesty. If I'm trying to make you happy because of how I think that you're going to think about me, like, what am I doing? What are we doing?
You're taking your will right there.
Yeah,
Exactly.
self-seeking, like it's the definition of self-seeking.
Exactly. And so you have that self-esteem, which is contingent on circumstances, right? And you get a mixed bag in terms of like the well-being. There's mixed effects. While self-acceptance, bro, there are no it's not contingent on anything. You're just doing it. And then it's only positive in its effect. There are no mixed effects when it comes to self-acceptance. So you got to accept that you're an addict, move forward, know that I have a problem today, that I have a practical solution to get out of my problem. People die every day not knowing what their problems are. Right? I know what my problem is. I'm so grateful that I got scooped up and prayed into these rooms, and now I can work on myself, knowing what my disease is, man. Look, if you went into a room full of cancer patients and said, look, all y'all got to do is read some books, take some suggestions, get a best friend, and do some step work. Come on, man. Every single one in that place would be in your ass trying to get that shit done. If like, put it that way, this disease is not going away. It's not going anywhere. I don't want to die because of this disease. I want to die with it. I know it's not going anywhere, but so I can arrest it. I can get a daily stay of execution, right? Based on my spiritual conditioning. So based on me staying present and staying in service and staying out of my own shit, then I can stay clean just for today in a Just for Today program. And if you woke up before me today, you got more clean time than me. right? And clean time doesn't mean shit, but it means everything because I can come to the table now with a little bit of that benefit of the doubt back. Right. My mother has been able to sleep for 3 years, not worrying about that phone call. So I just, man, step one, but I had to just say those last couple of things, man. We're addicts. It's about how free do you want to be? Work the steps, man. How free do you want to be? Right.
Yeah.
So
You
I
got a
used to,
question for me, Chris?
in active addiction, he was the god of my misunderstanding. Right. I have a god of my understanding now. And you can't tell me anything about it, man. It's my God. It's my God. You have yours, I got mine, and let's stay clean together, man. You know?
Yeah. In the how free do you want to be? I feel like the level of freedom is directly proportional to the amount of surrender. So
Damn, I love
the
it. I
deeper
love
you
it.
go, the higher you'll rise.
Yeah, man. Surrender's like learning how to float. Stop fighting the water and shit, man. Just
Yeah.
let go. Just let go.
Yeah.
Learn how to float.
All right, you want one more? Or we
Yeah,
We'll go one more. I got time for one more
15
question.
minutes.
Yeah.
I
Like
have
a
to be
quick round.
driving away in 15 minutes.
So we're
to
doing
another point.
a fast round.
Honestly,
Fast
we
round.
can stop now if you want.
Lightning
Oh,
round.
no. We could do. We
Ask your
call it
question.
lightning round.
Yeah, this
All
is
right.
fun.
All right. For people that are struggling to trust the process, what advice would you give them to help them see that the steps are a reliable path to healing?
Wow. Okay. Well, I think,
You stumped him.
well, you know what? I don't know. Like I try to think of myself inside the final points of my addiction, and would I even have really listened or understood? You know, I think I would do similar to what we've done here today. I would tell somebody about the hell that things were and how they progressed and my level of denial and delusions. And I would tell them how the steps changed that. And I would tell them of the freedom that has occurred inside my life from doing the steps, the fact that serenity is an option now in my life that I never saw. I never saw serenity, you know, and the bliss I sought with drugs or alcohol was never the same satisfying as the serenity I'm experiencing inside the steps. And that the chains are broken. You know, the chains are broken, and I am just forever enamored with being able to continue working towards a solution. And I think I'll leave it there in my lightning round. But that was a good question. I would like
Ask
a
the
whole
question.
podcast on that question.
Yes. Ask that question again, please. Because I'm an addict.
Yeah, of course. No, I'm same. My brain doesn't work. Let's see. For people struggling to trust the process, what advice would you give to help them see the steps as a reliable path to healing?
So look, we have a thing in our literature that says meaning makers make it, and that's true. Meaning makers make it, but step workers recover, man. If you're doing the steps, you're going to recover. It says it says in our literature, I don't know, I'm not going to quote the page because I don't want to get it wrong. It says, never have we ever seen a person work the Narcotics Anonymous program relapse, close quote. And so I got to live this program. Part of living this program in a 12-step program is doing the steps. You got to do the steps, man. You know what I mean? It's we can all run out of that burning building, right? It doesn't matter who gets out first as long as we all get out of that burning building. But then what are we going to do once we get out of that burning building? You know, are you just going to lay on the ground? Or are you going to try to get better? You know, and then some of us actually, you know, talk about sponsorship being the highest form of service in our fellowship. Like those are the magical motherfuckers that are actually suiting back up, training to go back in that burning building to pull motherfuckers out of there, dude. Those are the people that I really respect, right? If you know, and I think all of us here sponsor young men or women, whatever. I've got a few. Grateful for that, man. And sponsorship is a two-way street. You know, when I get a call from one of my sponsees, I'm not in my own head at that point, and I would do anything for them. You know, it's just all about that service. It's about the service, but the step work. And look, I've said this the other day, like, and not literally, but the step work don't mean shit. Step work doesn't mean anything. It's the spiritual principles that you gain as a result of working the steps. It has nothing to do with the step work. If you don't work a step and know what spiritual principles are in relation to that step, you need to go do that step again. You know what I mean? You need to go do that step again because you didn't do it right. And so it's about learning those steps, about being able to live those steps, it's about being able to live by those principles. And it's a very, very important thing because I have people outside of the fellowship trying to ask me how to work a 12-step fellowship in their life because they see what it's done to me in my life. They see that the change is made to me in my life. I used drugs for over 20 years to become the dude I became when I got off drugs in less than 3. Right. And so it says in our literature, if we're willing to move towards our dreams, so a lot of times we move well past them. We are very resourceful when we come out of our addictions, man. If we got our mindset on something, we're clean, we're working a program, we got a God in our life and a set of spiritual principles. You ain't gonna beat us. You can't beat us. We won't lose. We don't lose. We're gonna get what we want. We used to drive in a 1-wheel bicycle in Hurricane Andrew backwards trying to get a last fix. I'm gonna get that job before you. I love you guys, man. Thank you for being here, Chris. This was dope. This is fun.
Thank you guys so much.
Okay, lightning round answer, Chris.
What advice would I give to
That's a good way to end it, too.
struggling to trust the process? I may just encourage them to go to meetings, to go to a lot of meetings, a cross section, and then come back and then I could ask them perhaps, do you believe that these people have recovered? Do you think that they're all lying? Like, do you think all of the people that have over a year sober are lying to you? Do you do you think they're full of shit? And be like, or I might say to somebody, what's the worst that can happen is like, okay, like it won't work. And then you can go back to use it.
Yeah.
Like,
we'll refund your misery.
No harm, no foul. Just give me a year. Like, give me a year. And then earnestly do these things. Even if you don't think it works, just give it a shot. Like, just give me a year. And then if it doesn't work, go back and use.
Yeah, bro. If you stay clean for a year and you come back and tell me that you want to go back to that way of life, go ahead.
I'll buy you your back.
Good luck.
I'll buy you the back.
I will refund you your misery back 10 times over, right? So yeah.
Yeah,
I love it.
I think that's maybe what I'd say. I don't know. I could give a booky answer, but that's probably what I would say.
That's perfect.
And then for the people, some people need to do a little bit more research.
Exactly. And some people aren't addicts. If they come in here and it ain't working, or if they can use one drug or drink or a little bit, and as a gentleman, like y'all say, then you're not shouldn't be here. It's not for you.
Some people are moderate drinkers. Some people are hard drinkers.
Some people can do it.
Exactly.
I can't.
We'll figure that out in the doctor's opinion.
Not me.
Not me.
Yeah.
Not me.
I really want to thank you for being here today, Chris. I would love to have you back again sometime if you'd be open-minded to that.
Yeah, absolutely.
And Andrew,
this was
I love you both.
You already know what time it is, man.
And guess what, everybody? Tune in next time.
Love you guys. Thanks, Chris.
I love you. Have a wonderful day. Please help us help others. If you'd like what you've seen here today, please subscribe and share this podcast and help us get to 100 followers. We're looking for interaction with our audience. So please email recoveryfreedomrising@gmail.com or contact Milan South Okanagan Starcic on Facebook with questions, topic suggestions, or just comments. We'd love to hear from you.